Hello, Soul Bingers. This is Kari Caldwell, your host and Soul Binge Guide, and welcome to the Soul Binge Podcast. I am pretty excited about our content for today. It's something that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while now because I'm finding myself as I watch the media, when I watch the media, I should say, feeling triggered and activated by so much of what is collectively out there, especially as it relates to men and masculinity and all that is all about. And so I've put together this content for you today to kind of break it down and really get a handle on why there is all of this apparent toxic masculinity out there and really what it's all about. Because the reality is, if we're spotting it in our environment, we've all got pieces of it somewhere in our energy field. We all can identify with it because it is somehow influenced and impacted who and what we are. And I find that it's really critical in order to understand it, to understand also where we are going and how we can begin to work with it to not just heal it, but to see it within ourselves and transform and transition the energy out. And so first and foremost, to really understand why this is occurring at this specific time in all of our lives, where there's just this massive discord and unrest and whether you look at it politically, it's not just here in the United States, but it's around the world where people are really, cultures and societies are really trying to figure out who and what they are, what defines them. And so all of this is occurring because of this shift that humanity is currently undergoing or experiencing. And over the millennia, all of the scientists, the astrologers, the myth holders in ancient times, the storytellers, all have tracked what is going on in humanity with the patterns in the stars. And so we have this map astrologically that tells us, well, at this certain point in time, humanity behaved in this manner. And at this time, when these planets shifted, humanity seemed to behave in this manner. And so the way I like to think of this is that, as we come out of this 2,000-year astrological cycle that's known as the Piscean Age, we're essentially stepping into a new cycle, the Aquarian Age, where we know what it's going to look like because of the patterns that have been exhibited in the past over the course of the evolution of humanity. And so with that, as we step into this new paradigm and try to gain footing, there is obviously going to be all of this unrest, because what's it supposed to look like? We're all seeing things with new perspective, new energies supporting us. I think of it oftentimes like if you were to go out for a hike in the middle of the day, you have an abundant amount of sun, an abundant amount of light available to you to navigate so that you can allow your mind to wander and you're not really thinking too much about where you're placing your footsteps, how you're moving, how long it's going to take you. There's just more there. But if you were to take that same hike and step out in the middle of the night, in the dead of the night, where there's zero light available to you, you begin to move in an entirely different way. You may be more cautious, you may be more reserved, you may be more trusting or less trusting than you would in the middle of the day. And so I like to use that analogy because the masculine that we are coming out of in the Piscean Age and the feminine that we're moving into is present, just like the sun is available to us during the day, and just like we lose it and transition into the moon at night. And so we as a whole, because of different gravitational poles and cosmic energies that are available to us, are making this transition into more of a dark of night type of field. And so the energies and the perceptions that are there, what we have access to is entirely different. The way we're starting to see and view our world is very different than it would be over the last 2,000 years with all of these other energies that have influenced us. And so as we continue with these shifts, in this space, many people are being confronted with a new experience of what were old energies. And so we're not liking what we're seeing. And more importantly, we're not liking what we're feeling. It's like putting on that pair of jeans that you haven't worn in 10 years. It suddenly doesn't feel the same way as it did a while back. And so in our culture and in our society, it's not just a rise of women's voices, but it's also men, and we've ultimately seen these shifts occur throughout humanity. Psychology has long studied it, the blueprints of human cognitive and emotional patterns, and they've always manifested, no matter what, whether it's masculine or feminine energy, they manifest in both men and women. So men can have that feminine and hold that feminine energy. They are exposed to it right now, equally as much as women are being exposed to it. And when we're able to access both, or tap into what these blueprints have to offer, we begin to learn about them and try to look to the past to see how and what the answers were at that time. And so as we're making this shift, we're being called to go inward. We're being called to explore ritual. We're being called to explore the myths and the dreams and the visions. And in modern times, it's through movies and books that we're getting access to understanding what this new paradigm is all about. So today I really wanted to dive into what the masculine is, so that you have the opportunity for when you see the external unrest and the chaos and whatever may be unfolding, both on a macro level, on the global scale, as well as in your community, as well as in your own household and in your own dynamics, to be able to set the bar so you can recognize where the misguided aspects of the masculine are versus where we're really meant to be striving for. Because it's not about, the emergence of the feminine is not about getting rid of the masculine, but it's about allowing the masculine to be seen so that it can grow and evolve and transform into what it is called to transform into, and to ultimately strike that balance that is so essential for divine creation to unfold. And so, what we're witnessing in our daily culture is this advent, or what modern feminism will tell you is essentially the masculine gone awry, or the immature masculine. And modern feminism has put this title on it called the patriarchy. So you probably hear that word thrown around a lot. And the patriarchy is just an externalization of being told, who you should be, what you should wear, what you should eat, how you should believe, what rules you're going to play by. And the patriarchy really is there and it exists, but it's gotten to the point where it is the embodiment of the immature masculine. And so where I part ways with this is in calling the patriarchy what it is that concept that we are all subject to this, that we're all victims of it. The reality is we all have choice, and we all have our own ability to discover our truth, because we're not victims. We have the ability to move through what the immature aspects of the masculine that is out of balance are, and move into the more mature, to create the more mature. So it's with this, I dare say, as we all go inward, for us to discover what our own mature masculine story looks like, and track it with our own experiences so that we can discover our own inner sovereignty, our own inner power, and begin to emulate what it is we're seeking to create. So as you journey inward, going forward in your spiritual practice, I invite you to really be with your masculine archetypes. And they're based on, the documented myths and clinical evidence from daydreams, patience, careful observation. These archetypes have been around for over 100 years now. And we see them also the world over. We see them evidenced in the myths that have been told and studied. And so with that, we'll dive into the first one, which is the archetype of the king, or the Lord, that divine creative order that a king offers, the energy of a king offers. The king's two primary roles are for providing fertility and blessings. So, and also lawmaking. So there is a structure, an inner creative order that occurs because the energy of a king is present. It is not just chaos and everything goes. It is truly an order that comes to exist because of the energy that what is called the king brings to the table. And so in day-to-day reality, it's going to be that father figure in the family. It's going to be that person that, you know, wants certain things to function a certain way and draw it all into a semblance of some kind of organization and connection with what the environment is around them. So for many of us, you know, we see the king, and the king was always married to the land, was responsible for the land. And so in this circumstance, the feminine truly is the land. Your home becomes the land, right? And so that's the breakdown of the different energies. And when that energy goes awry, it's known as the tyrant, right? Like too much force, too much say, not enough flexibility and honoring of what is there and available that the land has to offer. The second archetype that's available is, or that is the embodiment of the masculine, is the warrior energy. And it's specifically defined, you know, we think of it, our species is inclined to go heavy on the warrior energy in the context of, you know, we are known for creating war. No other animal species out there creates war like humanity does. And so, but the purpose of the war is to ultimately invoke stability. And that stability plays a role in also, you know, it's a type of aggression that is apparent. And so if we're all there and responsible for certain people and certain things as the king, then we also have this need and this desire to protect what is ours, to protect what we love. And so that aggression, of course, is a rousing energy. It's a jump in and get it. You either hold your space, you hold your ground, or you leap forward, you leap into action. That's all the energy of the warrior. And it is a very strong, energizing energy that we can all tap into at any given time to create action, to create transformation. The third archetype of the masculine is the magician, right? And in our culture, we know it historically as being shamans, as medicine men, as wizards, and in more modern times, it's our inventors, it's the scientists, it's the lawyers and the doctors and the technicians. The magicians are always questioning the supreme goal that any project that is out there is taking on. So they're the known masters of probably an unknown technology, something that isn't known to all of us. And they begin to access this divine wisdom or this greater sense of knowing through ritual and through patterns and routines. It's always a very systematic type of energy that we exhibit. And the greatest awareness that they have is insight. And it's an insight into the things that are not apparent or available for all of us. And so the last one, but not the least, is the archetype of the lover and the masculine lover. And this energy is all about, we think of the lover as being a very feminine energy, but the reality is both men and women are responsible for that creative force. You can't create life in 99.9% of circumstances out there without having both the masculine and the feminine. And so the lover, the masculine version of the lover, truly exhibits life force and is the one who creates the connection. It is through men that we create connection. And from it, new life emerges. The miracles are spawned within the vessel of the feminine, but it doesn't happen without the masculine energy. The Romans often referred to this as amor, A-M-O-R, and we all know that word as meaning love, but what it meant for the Romans was complete and total union of both body and soul, of one body and soul with another body and soul. And so what it invokes is the energies of vividness, of aliveness, of passion, and of sensation. Being able to be in our own body and just be there without shame, and be powerful and be held and experience feelings of complete and total delight and joyousness, because we are who we are and we're fulfilling the role, the divine role that we are meant to fulfill. And so it goes without saying that when we witness any of these four archetypes playing out and they've gone awry, what we're witnessing is the immature version of them, the boyhood version of them versus the manhood, where it's a fully embodied energy. And so with the king, it's that tyrant that I mentioned. It's also can be a weakling. With the warrior, it's your sadist. And the weaker version of that is the masochist. And with the magician, it's that person who's the manipulator, or the person who just throws their hands in the air and ignorantly proclaims innocence and ignorance. And with the lover, it's the addict. It is that compulsion to pursue your addictions. And on the weaker version, it's total, complete and total impotence and inability to move forward with life. And so as I've rattled off those particular immature aspects, it's amazing how you can probably see those a lot more apparently and readily in your common culture, in your day-to-day life, because at the end of the day, all of these aspects are a part of us. And by the way, the feminine has a weaker or an immature version as well, which is a lot of what we're seeing bubble up. We see the immature feminine and the immature masculine rising together, ultimately, so we can get all of this out and move in and transition into the new paradigm that we're creating. In thinking about it, humanity hasn't really had a leader that fits and unites or fulfills every single one of these qualities for a millennia. It has been a long time. We have the immature essentially evidenced and all of these versions that we're working through. And so I brought this podcast to you today. I bring this to you today in this podcast, I should say, so that we can begin to identify and spot these qualities where they are, to honor them, to strengthen them. So many articles are out there now, and people I'm coming into contact with where, the men in our world are just losing their sense of footing, their sense of grounding, whether it's how they fit in with their family dynamic, how they fulfill their sense of purpose, what their work is. It's an ever moving target and changing, and we just have not had the leadership that fulfills all of these shoes. And so I share it because not only are we moving into this new paradigm where the problems we've had aren't going to be solved, with where we were at. It's not going to be solved with the knowledge that we currently possess from the space that those problems have been created in. The reality is these problems are only going to get solved by creating these new versions, by pulling in new energy and sourcing our thoughts, our wisdom, our ideas, and creating new solutions in a way that doesn't even exist yet. And because the foundations that we are accustomed to, that foundation of the Piscean age, is no longer present. We don't have that structure anymore to rely on because it's a new structure. And so our ability to problem solve, whether it's in your daily life or on the macro level with bigger issues in our communities, in our society and our culture, we need to do it. We have the opportunity to do it from this grounded, this new space, this new energy, and to really tap into it and give birth to the energies that are going to facilitate the emergence of the divine masculine, that are going to allow for the immature masculine to evolve and to grow, and for all of our community, all of the men in our lives, and for us women, the masculine aspects that we carry to evolve as well. The reality is we've all been impacted by the immature masculine. We have self-doubt, we have shame because of it, because of our run-ins with it. And so it's in knowing what it is, calling it out for what it is, being able to put the label on it and move on, that we're able to identify that next piece and move into that next piece. You know, like I said, our foundations have been broken. And so the objective becomes to seek and embody and create from what it is that we discover when we go within, to discover our inner sovereignty, our inner truth, our inner power, and be able to speak with that being what drives our voice. So hopefully these different archetypes that I've shared today of the masculine and what it's all about has been insightful for you, triggered some different way of perceiving, you know, either the men in your life or how those masculine energies show up in your life, and maybe help you figure out which pieces you want to hang on to and which ones you're ready to move through. And with that, I invite you to join me at soulbinging.com, where we're doing a lot more of work around these topics and these areas, and would love for you to join us there and drop in for a quick meditation. You can also find the Soul Binge Circle on Facebook. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day and so much love and light.